The only thing I love more than epic mythical creatures is my dog, Margot. Look at her. She's so bloody adorable. So full of love. Which has got me thinking, why can't mythical creatures be so goddamn adorable or really like practical in a really domesticated way? Well, that's what we're doing in this video. Now, since I start off with a mention of my adorable dog, why not start off by domesticating a not so adorable dog? Dogs? Cerberus. A multi-headed dog from Greek mythology, usually depicted with 3 heads, that guards the gates of the underworld, preventing the dead from leaving and the living from entering. Now, most depictions of Cerberus are that sort of wolf-like breed or large Doberman-esque dogs. I mean, big scary wolf-like dogs are what all dogs used to be a long time ago, but due to selective breeding and us humans wanting companions and things that are very cute and small, means that now we have things like this, and this, and this. This was a wolf! Oh my God. So solving the Cerberus problem of domestication is as easy as solving the problem we've already solved, domesticating the wolf-like dog. But I've got at least 3 dog heads to work with here, starting off with a pug. Pugs were bred in China for Chinese emperors and wealthy households as lapdogs and symbols of wealth and status, whose entire purpose was their appearance. And the derpier and more adorable they appeared, I guess the higher status you were? I don't know how it worked. The Corgi is my son's favorite dog breed. Like our pug friend, it is royalty that has influenced its personality and appearance to be selectively bred for their smaller frame and adorable features. And then the Chihuahua, which is adorable, but also part of me just loves the idea of one of these 3 heads being particularly spicy. But that's just my heads. I still have a body to choose. And when it comes to adorable and non-confrontational, of course, I'm gonna go with the sausage dog, the Dachshund. Dachshund. So I test my combination with the pug head in the middle and the 2 with actual noses on either side to, I guess, balance it out symmetrically. Some tells me this is gonna work. So let's just launch into it. I'm really happy with how this is coming together, but I have to say I started to hit a stopping point with the Chihuahua, who I was trying to get to look aggressive, but it wasn't looking appealing enough, and in the end I relented and decided, you know what, we have selectively bred our Cerberus to be as friendly as possible, even the Chihuahua. Oh, and let's not forget, Cerberus actually has a snake's tail. Some depictions have a snake head, some just make it a snake's tail. I'm just gonna go with a snake's tail because it's less weird. I love the idea that our domesticated Cerberus is still massive compared to us. All the better for cuddles and playtime. Found a good color combination that works for the base of the fur tone of all 3 dogs. And without further ado, I present to you my pitch for the domesticated Cerberus. What a good boys. Those is a good boys, isn't they? All right, we started off pretty vanilla. Everyone knows Cerberus, pretty straightforward in terms of how to domesticate it. But I got my team to prepare this one for me and have asked for some challenges, and challenges they have provided. Next up is the basilisk / cockatrice. Let me explain. Basilisk and cockatrice are often interchangeable, and historically, if you look into it, they basically were at a certain point in time. Their descriptions are very similar, and even how they're made is almost identical, except for one key difference. Basilisk is when you have a chicken's egg incubated by a snake, or a snake, the cockatrice is a snake. One of them incubated the other one's egg, and they just sort of swapped, and they call them a different thing, but apparently they look the same, depending on when you're looking at it. It's confusing. Anyway, basilisk or cockatrice has legs, beak, coxcomb, which I think is the, or is it the, and reptilian body. This creature has an intense and penetrating fire in its eyes, such that any animal or person gazing directly upon it would die. This is my depiction of all of those features put into one form, so now to figure out how to domesticate it. Well, like we've done with Cerberus, I'm actually going to reverse engineer it a bit, because what we know as a chicken is quite different to the pre-industrial revolution hormones in feed, roided up chickens that we have today. And as far as I can depict, this is what a chicken would have looked like when the original basilisk or cockatrice would have been described. So I wanted to take that same extremity of change between the original chicken and the current chicken and apply that to our cockatrice, which essentially means torturing the poor thing by making it so burdened with its own weight for the means of its production that through selective breeding and of course its utilitous use, it has useless wings and a very, very plumpy body that it can't even really stand to bear its own weight anymore. Now that's a good place to start to figure out what to do with this thing, but I don't think it would be a pet. The cockatrice cockatricelisk will kill you if you look at it directly in the eyes, or turn you to stone or petrify you if you gaze at it indirectly through water or through a mirror. And yes, I know a lot of you know the basilisk from Harry Potter, but no, it does not look like that. It does not. And its weakness is not the sword of Gryffindor, it's weasels. Now that would have made a more interesting movie. And Harry pulled out of the sorting hat a weasel and threw it at the goddamn snake. So we are going to implement the weasel in the use of our cockatrice. Humanity through history has been pretty good at turning dangerous things into useful tools. And with a cockatrice, it might be as simple as creating little goggles that fill with water or something so it won't kill with it. I could do like Cyclops goggles in like X-Men, but I feel like that would look too cool. And I feel like our cockatrice is looking pretty goofy. I kind of like that. So I'm gonna stick to goofy. And in that vein, I also think a cone around its head would be a particularly useful thing to put around it, not only to help control it, face it in the directions you want it to be faced, but also to shield you from it so that when you're handling it from behind, you always have a way to keep its head straight. The vision is solidifying, and it's clear that our domesticated cockatrice is used in sort of production lines of death or petrification. Let's bring that to life. Now, while that sounds horrific, actually might not be as awful as you think. When you consider, obviously, how many animals are slaughtered on a daily basis for human consumption, it might actually be quite a useful and merciful thing to be able to have a production line of cattle or whatever animals that are going to be turned into food that simply scroll past the cockatrice and drop dead painlessly and instantly. Maybe it's a humane means of execution, I don't know. It sounds awful and looks adorable. So I'm feeling conflicting feelings on this one, but I'm also kind of enjoying that. I'm going to connect a little chain to the top lip of his cone so he can't turn his head to the people managing the production line behind him. And because I can't resist it, a little weasel who I guess has also been domesticated to the point where they can stand guard. And I mean, look, it doesn't make any sense, but I just picture him holding like a little spear, like a little guard, because it's adorable. And I mean, the cockatrice thing doesn't make a lot of sense either. So yeah, I'm just giving myself this one. Now to bring this one to life, I'm going to switch to pencils instead of markers. I've gone over this whole cockatrice with a simple single layer over everything. I think most color pencil illustrations you see from people who are less experienced end up looking a little something like this. But to me, this is like the starting point. With your base coverage down, now you can really get into the fun part. As you can see, with only 2 or 3 colors per blended area and just moving back and forth between them, accentuating the shadows and deepening the saturation, I've ended up with not only really smooth coverage, but bold blends with really vibrant colors that just work so nicely together. And as a result, I have my finished production line. What is a production line for? I was gonna say I'm not sure, but death. It's a production line for death or petrification. Maybe it's like making statues. You know, to turn things to stone. You don't have to sculpt the horses anymore. You just put them on the production line and stone horse statue. God, that's horrifying. And adorable. It feels irresponsible to want a pet weasel with a spear, but I do now. Let's move on to our next creature, which is one I had never heard before it was presented to me by my team who helped prep this video. That is the Kappa. My only knowledge of Kappa is in the Twitch chat. Do they still use it to mean sarcasm? When people say something and then they say Kappa, and that means I'm being sarcastic? Is this what the generations these days use? The Kappa is a creature from Japanese folklore that originates in stories about water spirits. Said to be roughly humanoid in form, but about the size of a child, inhabiting ponds and rivers in Japan. Clumsy on land, but at home in the water. Typically greenish in color or yellow-blue, and either scaly or slimy skinned, but with webbed hands and feet and turtle-like carapace on their back. And 3 anuses. I have to double check this one. Three anuses. 3 anuses. Now, despite their small stature, they are physically stronger than a grown man, with the ability to swim like fish. Now, while they're potentially dangerous and mischievous, they are said to be very honorable and always keep promises and are highly intelligent. Now, of course, the first thing that stands out to me about them is the 3 anuses, which I can't help but imagine is useful to see where they are. Like, it's gas, right? It's gas coming through water bubbles, so you'd see the bubbles on the surface. Maybe that's useful somehow. And of course, I had to visualize my imagining of what 3 buttholes on the Kappa looks like. I'm sorry, I don't get this opportunity very often, and I wanted to take you on this journey with me. Weird quirks of the creature aside, there is another weird thing that stands out about it, and that is that it has a dish in its head which must be filled with water at all times. So when they venture on land, the dish on their head can be covered with a metal cap for protection, but if the water spills, the Kappa can be easily overcome. This is the key to domesticating it. Like you break a horse in by breaking its spirit, controlling it, right? So we control the Kappa by creating some sort of air pocket bubble thing that we can use to push out water and put in air so it becomes disoriented, but you can ease it up. You can put the water back in. It's like, all right, now you're gonna do what I say. Sounds horrible, but this is what we do to animals. So let's not think about that. And what would it be useful for? Riding on it, I guess. I mean, they swim really well underwater. They're at home underwater. Small, like the size of a child, so I guess it would be kind of like riding on the back of a child in the water, but a strong child that can swim and is easily controllable through a dish in their head. So I've extended the dish to have handles on either side so that you can sort of swivel, turn the head in the direction. It's like, I'm going here, buddy, and it'll swim there. But if it doesn't, you pushes the air into that's right, good Kappa. So now that I have a clear idea as to how the Kappa's used, I'm going to convey this in its final form. And unlike the Cerberus and the cockatrice, I don't really have to change the Kappa much. Maybe give it like slightly longer flippery fins. If we selectively bred it in any way, it would be to make it a better swimmer and more obedient, but that really doesn't need to change how it looks very much. And I have to say, imagining being a diver, the only thing you have to think about is like the oxygen tank that you have on your back. Otherwise you can go wherever you bloody want as much as your body can handle in the depths of the ocean, because you're riding a Kappa who can take you anywhere you need. And as an emergency backup, if you run out of oxygen in the depths of the ocean, you can cup your face mask to one of its 3 anuses and you'll have a backup airflow. You don't want to do it, but like drinking piss in the wilderness if you're like dying, it's an option. Bringing this one to life once the line work is down is gonna be using a mixture of both my markers and my oil pencils. It's hard to get even coverage on markers over a large area without oversaturating, but by going in with the pencils, I can really even out the texture and tone and create a really nice smooth blend between my gradients while still covering a large area. Then it's time to finish off and finalize my piece with some bubbles coming out of the anuses of my Kappa and some streaky speed lines to show how swiftly and deftly we move through the water on our mount. It actually genuinely seems quite fun to ride. And it's like an extra safety thing, because I feel like you're diving with friends and people are up on the boat, they can be like, oh, he's over there, I can see the Kappa bubbles from its butts. We are doing the Bunip, and I'm not sure how many of you watching this know what a Bunip is. I'm gonna be honest, I barely knew what a Bunip was. But as one of the mythological creatures of the Indigenous Australians that we're gonna learn a bit more about and see how we might domesticate it if it was around today. Now, it's said to have the head like a horse or emu. I actually just started off by drawing a horse and an emu so that I can start to blend the two in its own mix while looking at the other features that it's said to have, such as black or brown fur, large ears, small tusks, an elongated maned neck about 3 feet long with many folds of skin, and a horse-like tail. The Bunip's been described as amphibious, nocturnal, reclusive, and inhabiting lakes, rivers, and swamps. Now, I have to say, finding imagery of the Bunyip is pretty hard to find anything consistent. They really vary wildly in the extremity in which they're portrayed, and a lot of the features that we've covered here can sort of fit into a mesh of those together as well anyway. So my Bunyip is going to be a bit of a mix of both, using a quadruped build of a horse, which we can lengthen and, of course, mount, because our domesticated Bunyip will be, like our Kappa, something that can be mounted and used for purposes of, let's say, farming. Maybe crocodile farms or something. Maybe the Bunyip makes that possible. So I've actually done a weirdly massive saddle thing on it, because I sort of imagine it as like a big plastic airtight container that fits around the body of the thing, which acts as a sort of flotation device. So if the rider is on the Bunyip in the water, the Bunyip can't dive under and get away from the rider. It sort of keeps them together at the surface. Not like a Kappa. Kappa's about diving. Bunyip's about gliding on the top. So I'm taking my depiction of the Bunyip to the Aussie outback, where its utility and amphibiousness can be highly utilised by an Aussie farmer, not only in navigating difficult terrain, but in herding and farming difficult creatures. Emus, crocodiles, drop bears, all sorts. I've gone for a bit of an action-packed pose with this one too, which I'm really happy with and feels really fun. And I really can imagine this creature and this Aussie farmer navigating around some billabongs or swamps, just getting the bloody job done. Speaking of getting the bloody job done, let's move on to colour. Obviously much more earthy in this portrayal, starting a few of the basic blends to create the foundation of contrast that I can build on. With my first layer of marker colours down, it's time to really give it that extra punch with my pencils. I always like to contrast things that are already down. So if I've got warms down, I like to contrast the highlights or shadows with something cool, and vice versa. And our Aussie driver is very confident as he slushes into the muddy billabong hunting for a crocodile, with a result I also think is really fun. And even though it's on a foundation of earthy tones, I feel like it has a really nice pop of colour and contrast. Which of my 4 domesticated mythological creatures would you like to have? Maybe you want to start a death production line and the cockatrice is the one you need. Everyone's probably going to say Cerberus, but hey, if you can think of any interesting applications of these creatures that I haven't thought of, let me know in the comments, and stick around for our future videos with art and creativity by subscribing and hitting the like button so more people can see this video. I hope you've had as much fun as I have. That is it for now. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.